Welcome back to Whip Count. On today's episode, we're doing things a little differently. We're diving into one of the most important and closely watched conversations happening in Wilmington, the future of school redistricting and the critical work of the Redding Consortium for Educational Equity. To help us unpack current developments and what lies ahead, we are joined by three leaders who have been involved in this effort. Representative Nnamdi Chukwuocha, State Representative of the 1st District and co-founder of the Redding Consortium, former Governor of Delaware and current Mayor of Wilmington, John Carney, who has been a long-standing partner in statewide education initiatives and serves as a voting member of the Redding Consortium, and Mr. James Simmons III, an educational advisor for the City of Wilmington and a leader with extensive district and school-level experience in the Brandywine School District. Together, they will be walking us through the latest news surrounding redistricting in Wilmington and Newcastle County, the challenges and opportunities on the table, and the factors that will inform the Redding Consortium's major decisions scheduled for December 16th.
As many of you know, there was court order deseg, and the City of Wilmington lost its school district in the late 70s. And once we lost our school district, the City of Wilmington initially became a part of the Newcastle County Consolidated School District. There was one district, and that lasted for a short while. And then it was created a 4-district model where the City of Wilmington will be served by the 4 northern suburban areas. And since then, the city has seen declining numbers in terms of our student outcome and many challenges that have been created by this system. So in 2019, Senator Lockman and I came in, and we were coming in right off the heels of a WEIC, and we wanted to pick up, we had a very aggressive timeline, and we created the Redding Consortium for Educational Equity to address redistricting. But where we are now, in 2024, in May, we produced our interim recommendations, and those recommendations were very similar to many of the other reports with 2 main highlights. First, saying that the Christina School District would no longer serve the City of Wilmington, and that our other mandate or recommendation for our interim report was that the City of Wilmington would be served by 2 or fewer school districts. And then we gave ourselves an 18-month timeline. So here we are, and we have to come forward to vote on our recommendations for our plan to present to the school board. Right now, we have 3 options. 1, to return to a Newcastle County Consolidated School District. Second option is to create a metropolitan school district where the Red Clay and Brandywine school districts would merge into a new school district. And then lastly is also variations of the Rivers plan, where it would be Christina and Colonial would no longer serve students in the City of Wilmington, but Brandywine would serve students to the north of the Brandywine River and to the south and east of the river. It would be served by Red Clay Consolidated School District. So we're here to speak about the options and again, why redistricting is important.
Well, let me tell you, that was a really great summary of the history over the last 25 years and how it affects students across the county, but in particular, the students that are now part my responsibility as the new mayor of Wilmington. All of the students in Newcastle County and all of the students across our state, I consider part of my responsibility for 8 years when I was governor. And while I was governor, we did pick up the ball that was fumbled on the 2-yard line with respect to the WEIC proposal, which would have would have eliminated Christina School District and had all of those students go over to Red Clay. But I think you really have to talk about the fundamental question. Why are we doing this? I know it came up at the public meeting in Brandywine, and that is everybody agrees that it doesn't make any sense anymore for Christina to serve the students and the families here in the City of Wilmington. And we've been unable to get a solution. Well, if you're going to take Christina out, somebody has to serve those students and those families in that parts of the city. My own view is any of the 3 is better than the status quo.
Yes.
But it's a big decision. Change is difficult for folks. So I want to thank Redding and their leadership and Nnamdi's participation on it for all this community engagement. The idea that somehow this has popped on people, it's just, we've been looking at this for more than 10 years.
And so I'd also like to chime in and say thank you for having me. I think it's an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, our hearts, and many other people in the state of Delaware, especially Newcastle County. A couple things I think I'd like to piggyback off of is when we talk about everybody in agreement that Christina should no longer serve the city, it's not just because of their performance. It's the one of 4 discontiguous districts in the country. And so that's a reason. Because if you argue about the data, you can, 10%, 20%, 30%, those numbers are relatively even when you think about changing cohorts of students. The fact that we're trying to say that we shouldn't have a discontiguous district is why. All right, and because when you
that sense of community,
correct,
that's what we hear from the Brandywine parents, and
it eliminates the defensive mechanism that Christina feels like we're pointing the fingers and the blame game on them.
Right.
So I'm not saying that those numbers aren't valid. What I am saying though is the rationale is it's a discontiguous district. There's the last time I checked, there was 4 in the country. That's the reason we should get rid of Christina in serving in the city of Wilmington.
And everybody accepts that proposition, at all your meetings, and everybody that I've talked to. Okay, if you accept that proposition, what's the best way to serve all those students in the city and outside the city, frankly, under a different configuration? Christina has their own challenges in Greater Newark, which is where their district is centered. But the idea that our high school students, in Southbridge and over on in Browntown and Hedgeville are going to Greater Newark for high school, it doesn't make any sense anymore. If their parents choose to do that, and my guess is in a transition they would be grandfathered and be able to finish out at those high schools.
And I think a couple of the other things in terms of since 1978 when we lost our school district and all that has changed in the educational landscape. I'm talking about choice and charter, and not only with the Neighborhood Schools Act, but so many things that have changed in terms of just Wilmington, in terms of voice and parents having the opportunity to choose and have options, more options for their students. Unfortunately, what has happened, our city was saturated with charter schools, and many of the charter schools were just receiving students who the charter schools which were created to be innovative and hubs end up mirroring the exact schools where the children were coming from. So we really didn't have that charter. So
with the perception that things are different.
Exactly.
Maybe they be a little bit different. But I remember campaigning on the west side, and a bus came by one day, and the children walked out, and I started talking to them, and I asked them, "Where are you going to school?" And they're like, "We go to Newcastle Charter."
Yeah.
I'm like, Newcastle Charter?
Yeah.
There's a school right up the road here.
That's really a part of it, and about how charter, of course, choice and charter are a part of Redding's charge to look at how it impacts us. But in terms of our city, we're having a voice. I mean, we are the only municipality across this nation that is divided into this 4-district model like this. And the data has proven for 47 years that it's unsuccessful, that it's not working. And despite repeated notions to say in reports and commissions and task force to say we should do something about this, we continually reach this point. And I'll make one last point before I open it up to you too. In terms of the options, we mentioned about the 2008 was when the Rivers Plan was introduced by Senator Margaret Rose Henry. We already had the Newcastle County Consolidated School District. And then in 2000, with the Neighborhood Schools Act, their first option was the Metropolitan School District, saying the same thing with Red Clay and Brandywine merging.
Combination of Red Clay and Brandywine.
So none of these options are new. So that's going back 25 years that all of these options have been presented. So when individuals say, oh, this is new, we haven't heard, no, none of these options are new. They've all been vetted. There's data. And you mentioned how far that we made it to the floor of the Senate for a vote, passed the House, and
got all the way to
got right there
in the red zone.
And we had the data. So we had the data then that can get us to that point. So we still have that data in terms of Redding, and I encourage everyone to visit solutionsfordelawareschools.com. That's our warehouse of information with our data and all our reports, our public meeting notice. Everything's there, so you can see the information that is behind what's pushing for redistricting.
The other thing I think that we haven't said in any of the 50-some meetings that we've been involved in is, to me, it's an opportunity for districts, district leaders, educators to change history. Absolutely. Like, to me, I've always embraced the opportunity to do right by students. As a leader, we never looked at what our proficiency rate was when I was the principal of Mount Pleasant. I give our staff tons of credit. When we were at 72%. I think we finished that when I was the leader. Our conversation was there's still 27% of our families who are not happy.
That's always has to be the
And
conversation,
so
right?
that's what helped us to move the needle. And so I think when we talk about 52%, there's still 48% of our families who we haven't done right by them for different reasons, right?
In every community in Newcastle County and across the state.
Absolutely.
We spend a lot of time talking about numbers, 52%, 38%, 34%. I think the sooner we get to the concept that those numbers are children. Right. And so we've got to put names to those numbers. Here's a really simple example. When you think about trying to move your cell of special ed students from 20% to 50%, that's a 30% increase. It seems really hard, but if your cell is 30, you're going from 10 to 15. So you're talking about 5 kids. And I don't think we do enough of breaking the numbers down to make teachers, students, families understand that we can do that, because the percentage seems really high, but the number isn't.
One thing in particular in terms of culture that's tied to Redding is we work with the AIR and our social drivers report to really say about the outside factors, the community factors that impact education. And looking at our community about how this 4-district model has divided our community. So in particular, in the district I represent on 30th Street, that's my dividing line between Red Clay and Brandywine. Those students don't get to know each other. So it creates this, you're different than me. To me, that's an underpinning for the violence. Also, the magnitude of this failed system. We're not talking about students who are doing great in school, the ones out on our streets with these illegal firearms. They're the ones being failed by this broken system. So when we begin to address this system, we begin to provide healing to our community, where our students will once again get to know each other. And we're addressing the needs of our students from their trauma, mental health needs, but most importantly, their academic needs. So they feel that they're proficient and they're able to move forward, where they can obtain a future and have a career. Many of our students don't feel that way. They just don't feel that they're being given what they want. So the culture within our schools and our community changes when the focus of our communities, the hubs of our communities, again, are our schools. When our community schools, where I have a parent right now who lives on 30th and Jefferson Street, her son is being sent all the way to Shortland School when she can literally from her front porch see Harlan School. Those are the challenges where communities are divided. These unnatural barriers, they hurt the city of Wilmington, and to me, they have a desperate impact on our educational outcomes for our children.
You always had an example, Jim, when you were with Brandywine and Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, so when I was at Brandywine, I developed a great relationship with Byron Murphy, who was the principal at Dickinson at the time. Because of 30th Street and that dividing line, oftentimes that transient population, they could move a block or two in either direction and go to a different school and a different school district. And so Mr. Murphy and I worked on what we called kind of introducing a trusted partner. So if I would say to a kid who's leaving Mount Pleasant and going to Dickinson, I could say, but I know Mr. Murphy, he's a really good guy. He's going to be your point of contact, and he's going to reach out to you and your family to ensure that you're welcomed in. Because if not, you're now in the middle of a school year, a student becomes a stranger to a population. The other example I think we talk about around rivalries, right? They're going to happen because a line has to be drawn somewhere. Here's a great example though. In Brandywine, the 3 rivalries are Brandywine, Mount Pleasant, Concord. They live across the street from each other. So you have a rivalry with someone who's your neighbor. Yeah. Right. And then, when you think about athletics and those kind of things, you have teams of people who live in the same neighborhood and all play for different schools. Yeah. And for me, it just makes no sense.
It just seems to me, in terms of the community connections you're talking about, everybody on the north side ought to go to either Brandywine, because they're right there. It's like, why are you going all the way out to Dickinson and McCain when Mount is right there, Brandywine is right there? And it's just not as clean when you're talking about the west side. I'd always thought that, the east side and Southbridge ought to go out to Colonial. Well, that went by the wayside a while ago. Yeah. But that's kind of the way I think about it in terms of districts. That's different than folks that are advocates that say, well, we don't need all those districts, let's consolidate and make decisions on that basis. If you had a consolidated Red Clay and Brandywine, you could still make student assignment decisions that reflected that you live on the north side and you ought to go to these high schools, and you live on the west side, you ought to go out. And by the way, Red Clay, they have plenty of empty seats in their high schools, mostly because they created charter schools
and magnets. Yeah.
So those are taking away from Brandywine or from Dickinson, McCain. Christina's the same. They got lots of empty seats there, but that's an opportunity, again, to get more resources in front of children.
The other thing I think we can add to this list of improvements that could, or possibilities or opportunities, is now families can get more involved. Can you imagine, as a family member, let's say you work in the city, you live in the city, something happens, whether it's a game, extracurricular that you want to support, you now got to jump on 95 in rush hour traffic to try to get to your son or daughter's game or event or extracurricular activity, and you miss it. The school needs you to come and be supportive. If you're in Brandywine, it's a 5-mile drive. At the most, it's 5 miles, right? And so I think it gives the opportunity to re-engage parents in the education of their students. Right?
And when you think about it, one of the things that, again, we're really trying to focus on in the city is that extra time. After school, weekend, summer programming. And that gets easier when the distances are closer together. We all the time we hear about students who can't get to this program or that program. Well, we ought to provide some transportation for them, but it's a lot easier and less expensive if you're just going up the road to Lombardi, or you're going to Mount, or wherever it is, one of the schools that are right on the border there of the city. Just makes more sense to me. And particularly if you start and accept, as everybody does, that it doesn't make any sense to have Christina School District serving, a greater Newark district serving portions of the city.
For me, every time we don't do something, that there's a group of kids that grows another grade. And let's say for every 12 years, we've lost a population of kids. In a pre-K to 12 system, our job is to create good citizens, right? And so the longer we don't give them the resources to be as productive as they can, that's another generation of students that doesn't have the opportunity to become that citizen that we're trying to develop.
Yeah, one of my big regrets during my term as governor of our state is that we weren't able to bring people together to change the situation here as to how we educate and serve the children in our city. We've made progress in creating the Wilmington Learning Collaborative. We made progress in creating opportunity funding, more resources for children that are low income and English learners across our state, not just in the city of Wilmington. And so now is the time. My responsibility now directly as the mayor of the city is to do everything I can to help the students in our city be successful. And when I think about our priorities, when I think about whether we can be successful in the city, this has to be number one. Our students that are coming up every day, I think about it in these terms. When I was governor and we started working on this, the students that were in kindergarten and first grade are now moving out of middle school into high school. And we're still kicking the can down the road. We can't, that's just not acceptable. We have a responsibility, all of us, to make sure that we do better by these students. Not just students in the city of Wilmington, students all across Newcastle County and across our state. With all of this, I remain confident that we can do it. We can only do it if we come together. We try to push away these issues that kind of really aren't relevant and are getting in the way, answer the really legitimate questions, and do better.
I agree, Mr. Mayor, and I think where we are, in terms of rather it was the court-ordered DSEG or rather it was the court hearings, trials in terms of inequities for our children. We think about right now, we're going through a funding commission report, seeing how we fund our schools.
For all students.
For all students. And and as you noted, you created the Opportunity Fund, another $60 million. But the bottom line here in the city of Wilmington and in northern Newcastle County, we're building on a broken system. This is so you can pump all the money you want into this system as it currently is. It's still fractured, and it's still hampering the educational outcomes for our students. We need a better solution. And as you noted, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take everyone to realize that we can do better. Even if your school is the top in this area of northern Newcastle County with 50%,
still kids are falling
there
behind.
are still 50%. And the one thing I will say, Monday at Brandywine's meeting, that many of the parents, they were shocked to learn that in their own district, they had students who were so far below that standard, what they believe to be the Brandywine standard. So we have that in every district, and it's time for us to really address it, to help make Wilmington whole, to give our students and our families, our Wilmington community, the opportunity to grow and thrive. We had a very successful school district where with educators that wanted to be here with the Wilmington School District, schools that were thriving. And I mean, my parent was a P.S. DuPonter, and my uncles were Howard, and then Wilmington High. All of this was
Forgot your father.
my father, exactly. All of this was what we grew up with. So to realize that our children never had that sense of community, we need that. Our children deserve it, to feel proud about the education, the schools in their communities where you are connected to. And I often say, I said last night, redistricting is not going to solve everything, but it is a very important first step to us addressing some of the ills that were created with this 4-district model. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning. There's a lot more work. And I said last year on the JFC floor that Wilmington Learning Collaborative, we said we need it for the next 25 years, that level of funding in order to bring things up to bear. But thank you both for joining me in this conversation and just stressing how important redistricting is for our city, for our community, for every student in Newcastle County to have equity and fairness. This is about all of us, and we succeed when we work together. So thank you both.
Thank you for having us.
From the Delaware House Democratic Caucus, this is Whip Count. A special thank you to WITN 22, City of Wilmington, for their collaborative efforts. Be sure to follow the Delaware House Democrats on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on all things happening in Legislative Hall. Until next time, on Whip Count.